If Google was to break up into all its pieces into each individual business, we think the stock could be worth $300 a share. We think that right now, everything is trading at a 15 times earnings multiple. That's a very low multiple for businesses like Waymo, Cloud, YouTube, and potentially the TPU business. Those businesses would be trading at 50 times earnings or more if they were independent. And Google is really holding them back by keeping them with search, which is now a tainted business, a controversial business that investors are really not willing to put a lot of value on.
Well, it's interesting to read this call in and of itself, but also when you put it against the regulatory backdrop right now, because you do have regulators attempting to break up this company, and you're saying, actually, this would be a good idea. Is this something that you see as actually likely to happen?
This is a catalyst. It's a potential catalyst. The Department of Justice telling Google, break up your monopoly is a potential catalyst, and the company should be leaning into that. Instead of dragging this out and dragging it out in court and having it influence all its decisions, instead Google could just say, okay, we'll spin off the ad network. That would be great, because then that business would trade like the Trade Desk, which again is much higher. And then they could spin off YouTube. Then that would trade like Netflix, which is much higher. Unfortunately, that's not what the management team is doing right now. Right now, they're just dragging their feet. They're going to fight it in court. They're going to try to keep the company intact, which again is not in the best interest of shareholders.
So why? I mean, Sundar Pichai, Ruth Porat, Ken Walker, these are smart people. Are they disincentivized to make a move like that as executives?
They are too focused on profits, on short-term profits. They know that if they spun off all these businesses into individual pieces, they lose some of the synergy of having them in one place. So let's say that instead of earning $11 a share this year, if all the individual pieces were broken up, they'd maybe only own $10 a share. But again, we argue that you're getting paid 15 times the $11. If you were able to get paid 50 times on some pieces of the $10, shareholders would own a much bigger business. So management team is focused on profits in the short term instead of focusing on shareholder value, which is their job.
And Gil, I will note that you're not alone in calling for this. You also have Needham analyst Laura Martin written that the company is worth more in pieces than together, echoing your call here. When you take a look at all the different components, basically all the parts of this business, what do you think the weakest link is?
The search business. While there was some argument whether the search business could continue to be a monopoly and grow at these rates, that really ended when the head of services at Apple pointed out that Google search is now declining on the iPhone. That tells us we've hit that watershed moment where people are chat GPTing things instead of Googling things. So that business, even if you believe that Google can maintain some of its monopoly here, clearly that's going to be controversial. Investors don't want to invest in a business that could be a melting ice cube, but they do want all those other pieces.
I've noticed that, did you realize the kids are calling ChatGPT Geppetto?
No. What kids? Who?
I've heard so many younger people say, which for me, that's a lot of people, right? But Geppetto. I feel like AI just cancels the need in some way for using Google search the way we used to, Gil, right? I mean, it's the first point of entry, and then you click on the results that you get from ChatGPT or Grok or Gemini, whatever you're using. So that seems to be, like Cox Cable, like it's done.
It does, because all Google gives us, right, is 10 blue links and a lot of sponsors around that, and we have to find the answer. The chats are giving us the answer we are seeking, and while right now that's all types of questions and some of them are not commercial, increasingly the chats are going to be commercial. What vacuum cleaner should I buy? Which toothpaste should I buy? What is the recommended medication and how to take that? what insurance is the best in this particular situation, the chats are going to give that answer. Once they start doing that, you better believe they'll start selling ads. And that's the point where advertisers, instead of putting all of their digital advertising budget into Google and Meta, are going to start having other choices. First and foremost, that's going to be these chat engines like ChatGPT or Grok, XAI. They're going to start allocating some of those digital advertising dollars there. The reason that hasn't happened yet is that there's no ads on ChatGPT yet.
Right.
They haven't turned that on. Clearly, they will. We're getting closer. The most recent hire they brought in is somebody that's an expert at selling ads. It's clear that that's where this is headed.